Well, there's still a major easement of restrictions in Wales from Monday. Indoor hospitality will reopen, and because things are, good in Wales at the moment, 6 people will be able to sit together indoors rather than 4 as we originally proposed. Holiday accommodation reopening in full, entertainment venues, amusement arcades, theatres, concert halls, and so on reopening. Indoor visitor attractions reopening from Monday. And the number of people who can take part in organised activities going up to 30 indoors and 50 outdoors. So it's a major reopening on Monday. There were a small number of other things that the Cabinet discussed, doing a bit more to allow small events to resume, wondering whether we could be a bit more liberal in the 2-metre rule for people outside their extended household. As we were discussing those things, so the concern about the Indian variant across our border began to emerge. And on the advice of our Chief Medical Officer and other advisors, we've just paused those things to make sure that we have the very latest advice from SAGE, which met yesterday, and our own scientific advisors, which we expect very soon. If it's still safe to go ahead with those things, we don't have to wait 3 weeks. We'll do that as soon as we get the advice. But because the concern is clearly real, I thought it was just sensible to do it as we've always done it in Wales, do it cautiously, step by step, wait till you've got the scientific advice and then make the move.
This week we've been speaking to pubs and restaurants. Of course, they're excited about that new easing, which was meant to be coming in. And they were saying that they wanted assurances that the sector's going to have more information going forward to give them time to plan. Will you do that?
Yes, so all the advice is published for the hospitality sector. I just want to say that I thought the hospitality sector did a fantastic job last year when they reopened indoors. The rules in Wales say that the sector should start with 2-metre distancing, but recognises that that isn't always possible in such venues. And so they can go below 2 metres, but they need to put some extra safeguards in place when they do. And they did that, I thought, very successfully last year. We'll work with them, of course, as we always do, to see how we can continue to open up the sector so that people can get back to trading fully and successfully.
I've been speaking with Unite for the Night campaign. It represents about 170 bars and restaurants and other businesses like nightclubs, and they're concerned because between, they say, 40 and 50% will be fewer operating compared to pandemic figures when that green light is given for that sector.
So we'll continue to support those businesses who can reopen but can't reopen fully. So the first decision I took after the election was to release £66 million of additional help to the sector. That's a down payment on the £200 million that is available in our budget to help businesses who are in exactly the position that you described. Vaughan Gethin, as our new economy minister, will now be able to have discussions directly with the sector as to how we can make the best use of 130 plus million pounds that is still there to be used to support them, as we hope, we hope we're able to go on reopening the sector so that they can have more people through the door. But it's an important point that is made to me by the sector, that they have to give people who are thinking of returning confidence that they can do that safely. Because if people don't think they're safe, they won't come back. So all the measures we are taking are good for business as well as good for public health.
I'll put some questions out to our listeners, and Victoria says, why are live performances allowed in England and not in Wales? Live performances allowed in England but not in Wales.
Well, we are reopening as from Monday, concert halls and theatres. So live performances will now resume in Wales. Those sectors too will have to do it in a way that makes sure that people are kept safe. The numbers won't be as large as they were when there wasn't a pandemic, but the pandemic hasn't gone away. So live events will reopen as from Monday, but in a careful and making sure that people are safe way.
Ben Watts is looking further ahead. He says last time the COVID cases during the winter were combined with flu cases. He said, will that happen again this autumn, winter?
Yes, you'll see every time we have a 3-week review, we publish the advice of the Chief Medical Officer. And in the very final paragraph of his advice, you will see he is warning us that last year, because of social distancing and everything else, we had the lowest flu season we've seen for many, many years. This autumn, if as we hope, more aspects of society will be open, the risk is that flu will come back and other seasonal illnesses will come back, and that will put additional pressures into the system. So we are planning already for an autumn vaccination campaign in relation to coronavirus, and that will be carefully planned alongside flu vaccination. But the Chief Medical Officer is echoing what your questioner said in alerting us to the fact that in the autumn, we might have a combination of things that will cause significant pressures on the health service.
I'm going to switch to your cabinet now, and I was pretty excited, I've got to say, because we've recently done our Wales Net Zero 2030, a very ambitious campaign, and to see that you've got these new roles, looking at sustainability, looking at a greener Wales. Why those two roles in particular?
Well, first of all, congratulations on the campaign, because we really do have to use all our efforts and everything we do ourselves in our everyday lives to tackle those other two great crises of our time. Crises which, because of coronavirus, have inevitably been pushed a bit to the margin of our thinking. So that is the loss of biodiversity, which is very real here in Wales, and the climate change crisis as well. I wanted to make those challenges front and centre of the efforts of the Welsh Government over the next 5 years. That's why the biggest structural change I made yesterday was to create a new climate change ministry with powerful responsibilities in housing, in transport, in planning, in environment, in energy, all the things that actually drive the difference we can make in that area. And I am very excited by the opportunities that provides to us to do all the things that we can do in Wales to make our contribution to leaving our planet in a state that is fit for our children and our grandchildren.
The Scottish independence debate has dominated this election period, especially. The Prime Minister wrote to you asking for you to be at Team GB talks. Is it more of a UK crisis summit?
Well, I replied to the Prime Minister to say that, of course, I would accept the invitation, and I want us to be part of UK-wide discussions on recovery from coronavirus. But I went on to say that unless the UK government is prepared to take seriously the reforms that are needed to bind the UK together and to make it a voluntary association of 4 nations in which every nation wants to be part of the United Kingdom, then the fissures that are already there, the tensions that are already there will only grow. I stood in the election on a platform of strong devolution in a successful United Kingdom. And my letter to the Prime Minister urges him to play his part in making the United Kingdom a successful country for the future, because otherwise, all the things we saw in Scotland, the things we know are happening in Northern Ireland, and indeed the interest in further separation in Wales, those things will grow unless the UK government is prepared to come to the table seriously to design a common future for us all.
Government's handling of the coronavirus pandemic is going to face scrutiny and an inquiry, and Boris Johnson said that he's going to call in the devolved nations to that. How do you see that panning out? How is that going to work?
So I've had an opportunity already on Wednesday this week to talk about this with Michael Gove, the Minister in charge of the Cabinet Office of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So we will now be part of the planning of the terms of reference for that inquiry, part of the appointment system for the independent people who will run it. It's absolutely right that there should be independent scrutiny of the actions we've taken as a government here in Wales, but I've always believed that is best carried out as part of a UK-wide inquiry, because you cannot properly understand the decisions we have taken without understanding the UK context within which we were operating. I want the inquiry to have a specific focus on decision-making in Wales, I hope there'll be chapters in the inquiry that do exactly that. But those decisions are only properly understood and scrutinised if you understand the UK context within which we were taking those decisions. And being part of a UK independent inquiry will allow our actions to be understood in exactly that way.
Just taking another question actually from somebody who's driving forward on the universal basic income debate in Wales. That's Jonathan Rhys-Williams, and he says 25 newly elected Senedd members have signed the pledge for UBI. Clear progress there. This is something you support. Are you still going to press ahead with those pilots?
Yes. So you will see when the detailed ministerial responsibilities are published, that a basic income pilot is one of the specific responsibilities of our new social justice minister, Jane Hutt. It'll have to be carefully designed. It will have to draw on the experience of attempted pilots in Scotland. But yes, I have a very long-standing interest in basic income. I hope we will be able to mount an experiment here in Wales that will test whether, the claims that are made for a basic income approach are actually delivered in the lives of people when you're able to have such an experiment. Look forward to working with people like Michael and others who've also got a strong interest. We'll do it on a cross-party basis with other parties in the Senedd. As you say, there are 25 members of the Senedd in different political parties who have expressed an interest in it. I want to do it on that broad basis and design the best possible pilot that we can design for Wales.
I'm going to end the last question I asked you last time we spoke, and the answer might be a little different. You said you're going to serve a shorter term in office. You did really well this election. Is that still the case?
Yes, it's still the case. I've said from the very moment that I put myself forward as a candidate for Labour leadership that by the end of this Senedd term, the moment will come when it will be right to hand over to somebody who will have the future of Wales beyond this Senedd term. But all my energies and all my attention is focused on the job that I have to do. I am First Minister and I will be for well into this Senedd term as we complete the job of putting coronavirus behind us and setting us on the path to that greener, fairer, stronger Wales that we want to see in the future. Before the end of the term, the moment will come when it is right to give somebody else the chance to discharge the responsibilities that I have. And I haven't changed my mind about that, but it's at the back of my front of my mind is everything we want to do together to put the ambitious proposals of my party's manifesto to work for Wales.
Thank you, First Minister.
Emma, thank you very much indeed. Diolch yn fawr.